Happy Friday evening, everybody. We are going to continue tonight with our study of Genesis. We're in chapters 38 and 39. We'll give a couple of minutes for everyone to get on and join us. We've had some great questions, and thank you very much. Got my phone charger here, although I'm pretty good. I'm at 70%, so we'll make it through tonight pretty easy. Got some liquid vitamin C. So I'll be good tonight, although I am fairly certain I am not sick whatsoever. So enjoyed the sunshine today. Got another video up on my Science, Freedom, and Education YouTube account where I'm going through, just from a science standpoint, I don't bring Bible into it, but I bring science into questioning our public high school textbooks, biology textbooks over there. And so I was happy to get another one of those, and I'm going to be doing those probably once or twice a week, no more than that. Not as frequently as I'm doing these. But it's been a pretty productive day today. Got my next paycheck in. They're still paying us. Got some marching orders for what I'm going to be doing from here until probably the end of the school year in terms of taking care of students. We're just facilitating them learning whatever they're going to be learning in our respective genres, like I'll be doing math and physics. So nothing incredibly hard, not time consuming at all, just kind of being available. So pretty cool. But anyway, we're going to do Genesis 38 and 39. Both of these are fairly short chapters, and so we're not going to be here all night as I've done in some of the past ones. So anyway, I'll be reading out of the King James. Got the ESV up for Modern English, and I've got the Hebrew up in case you want to look up some words. I do have a couple of names at the end of chapter 38 that I've already got pulled up. I'm not going to look up all the names because a lot of those are Canaanite and not really highlighted. The only ones I really look at are either our main characters or ones that are highlighted. And so he was called, or because of this he was called. So anyway, that's what we're gonna look at tonight. So hey, Rosalind, welcome aboard. I don't think I see that I've got 3 people on, but I've only seen one pop up as a name. So we'll say hello as you guys come aboard. All right, so Genesis chapter 38 and verse 1. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and returned into a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. So this is Judah. This is the 4th son of Israel. And so he goes into he turned into a certain Adulamite, or he has come into the area of a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira, and Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. Now remember, the descendants of Abraham are not supposed to marry Canaanite women, so this becomes problematic. Judah saw there Shua, and he took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And excuse me. And he was at Chezeb when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. So Tamar is not a relative of Judah. He is somebody that he found for his firstborn son kind of like how Abraham sent a servant to find Rebekah for Isaac, and how Jacob went and found somebody for himself. Anyway, my little is giving me problems over here. I'm transferring a huge swath of files over, and she decided to stop on the computer, so that's fun. But anyway, hey Tracy, welcome aboard. So anyway, he finds this wife for her named Tamar, and Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of Jehovah, and so Jehovah slew him. So this guy's so bad that God just outright kills him for it. We aren't told how that happens. Is it just an immediate striking dead like Uzzah when he touches the Ark of the Covenant, or is this through some kind of providential manner that Jehovah kills him? We aren't told. It just that he dies, and Jehovah had a direct hand in that. And Judah said unto Onan, Go into thy brother's wife and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. So the problem here is that marries her and doesn't have any children, and he is killed before they have any children. And so Judah tells his second son Onan, you marry her and raise up seed to your brother. And Onan doesn't like that. He knew the seed would not be his, it would be considered his brother by law. So it came to pass when he went into his brother's wife that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. So he does not put his seed in her, he lets it fall on the ground. And because he did that, it displeased Jehovah, and so he slew him also. And what we're seeing here is kind of the building blocks of what we're going to see in the law of Moses. Moses is laying out some events here that we're eventually going to see codified in Exodus and Deuteronomy, about how women should be taken care of. If you have a woman who's a widow and she doesn't have any children, then the brother, if the brother's not married, he should take her as a wife so that they can have children and honor the brother that was killed or whatever. So we're seeing just kind of the beginnings of that. But anyway, what Onan did displeased Jehovah, and so God kills him too. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at your father's house, not at his house, at his father's house, till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelled in her father's house. So Tamar goes away for a while, and Shelah's a little boy, and so he's not full grown yet, not able to take a wife. So in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. So Judah's wife passes away, and Judah was comforted and went up into the sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. So he's still there with his friend, and for him to kind of deal with the situation, he goes out and works. You have these people that some people just need time, some people just need they need space, they need to be left alone, they just want to sit at home, eat ice cream, whatever. Other people to deal with whatever depression or grief or whatever that they have, they bury themselves in their work. And so that's what Judah does, is he goes out and he starts working out in the field with his friend Hiram. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, your father-in-law goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And so she takes off her widow's garments, and she covers herself with a veil and wraps herself, and sat in an open place, which is on the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and had not yet been given unto him to wife. So at this point, hey Linda, Shelah, the youngest brother, is grown enough to take a wife, and Jacob has not yet given. And I don't know if this is because Judah is still grieving over his wife, and he just doesn't think about it, or if he is holding back for some reason. But Tamar knows that Judah has promised to give her a son, and the way that women are perceived in this time period, it was necessary for their protection for them to be married and to have children, and to find protection in that type of relationship. And so Tamar is seeing that Judah is not keeping up with her the promise that he gave to her. Hey Stephen, welcome aboard. And so she's gonna take matters into her own hands. And so Judah saw her, verse 15, and he thought her to be a harlot, a prostitute, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. Remember, he's grieving. Not saying that this is a right or a wrong action. Definitely not condoning. I'm not condoning, and I don't. I know for certain God does not condone this action. But we understand why he's doing it. He's still grieving, and so he's going into this harlot to, I guess, find some comfort. And again, the Bible doesn't talk about this is right or wrong right here, but we're going to see later on that it is actually seen as something that's bad, even in this culture. And we're going to see Judah kind of condemn himself, much the same way David does later on. And so there's a bit of foreshadowing, I guess, in that. And she said, he didn't know it was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, well, thou give me a pledge till you send it. And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet and thy bracelets and thy staff that is thine, or that is in thine hand. And so he gave it. So he gives her the ring off his finger and his kind of bracers here that they used partly for defense and partly just as decoration. They call them bracelets here. They're not bracelets. They're more like bracers, like we would think of in terms of armor. And so they were for, like, if a wolf attacked, they could catch the wolf on the bracer, and it was a form of protection. And your staff that is in your hand. And so he gives her these things, and he came into her, and she conceived by him. So she gets pregnant by him. And remember, that's her goal. She's looking to have children and find protection through that. And so she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her and put on the garments of her widowhood. So she goes back to her dad's house and she changes it back into her clothes of widowhood. And then Judah sends this kid, this baby goat, by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand. But the Adulamite guy, Hira, can't find her. So he asked the men of the place, saying, where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And what this kind of comes across as, the way the ESV reads, is this is a cult harlot. She was a part of a temple worship type thing that was going on at the time. And so they said, there isn't a harlot here. There's no harlot in this place. And so he returned to Judah and said, I can't find her. And also the men of the place said there was no harlot in this place. And so Judah says, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and you have not found her. So I'm going to read out of the ESV, and kind of clears up what he's saying here. Judah replied, let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her. So what he's talking about is, okay, just let her keep the ring, let her keep the bracelets, or the bracers, and the staff.
May I listen?
No, you need to go to bed, Gwen.
Okay.
It's bedtime. And he's like, we don't need to be laughed at. And so that's why he said, let her keep the stuff. I sent this goat, she wasn't there, so whatever. So it came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. So that means that people are saying that somehow she got pregnant, and she's not married. And so they're accusing her of this, but they haven't put the two things together just yet. And so this daughter-in-law is 3 months pregnant at this point in time. And people have found out about it. When she was brought forth, verse 24, finishing it up here. And Judah said, bring her forth and let her be burnt. So Judah is wanting to punish her because of her getting pregnant by prostitution. Not saying that this is fair, and we're going to see here that he gets judged as well for this, but Judah's kind of being a hypocrite here, saying she needs to be punished for acting like a prostitute or having getting pregnant outside of being married, but he's the one that did it, and so she calls him on it. And so there's a lot of people that say women are kind of looked down on as second class during this time period, but this really actually goes to show us that And both people are considered guilty in this situation. So when she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man whose these are, I am with child. And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these, the signet, the bracers, and the staff. And so she's like, look, when she was brought out to be kind of tried and convicted, she's like, whoever owns these possessions that I have in my hand, that's the person that got me pregnant. And so she gives Judah's stuff out, and Judah's like, oh yeah, those are mine. That's mine. I'm the dad. And so he acknowledges them and says, she has been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. So Judah acknowledges, number one, that he was in the wrong for going into her and getting her pregnant. He calls her more righteous because she was doing what was the custom to do, to continue the seed, in spite of the fact that Judah was not upholding his end of the bargain. And so he puts it all together. He figures out this is why she did what she did, and I was wrong for not giving her Shelah, my son. And so he doesn't go into her anymore. He doesn't marry her, doesn't do anything anymore with her. But it comes to pass in the time of her travail that there were twins. So here we have another set of twins. Definitely runs in the family. Note that this has skipped a generation, as it tends to do. Jacob and Esau were twins, and now his son Judah is having twins. And it came to pass when she travailed that one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound up his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. But it came to pass as he drew back his hand that his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. So Pharez means just breach. Sometimes it's Perez. And then afterward came out his brother that had this upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. And Zerah means rising, and it's actually kind of one of those popular names, like we have John or Bob or some of those names that just everybody kind of has, William. Zerah is the name of a lot of people. Reuel had he was the grandson of Esau, and so Reuel had Zerah, who was one of the dukes of the Edomites. And then Simeon had a son called Zohar, which is an alternative spelling. And there's all these other people that are named this. So apparently Zerah is a very popular name. Zerah is kind of the English transliteration of the name. Zerach is how it's pronounced in the original language here. So that brings us to the end of chapter 38, and we will continue on into 39. We're going to head on into Joseph at this time. So Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him out of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. So remember the story. The brothers want to sell him, and so they kind of get some Midianites to draw him up out and sell him to the Ishmaelites. So there's a lot of middlemen going on here. But eventually Joseph gets into the hands of Potiphar, and Jehovah is with Joseph. Already we know Jehovah has been sending Joseph dreams, and we understand that he has kind of a big role to play here in all that's going on. Of course, we've heard the stories all growing up in our Bible classes. Joseph is kind of a central figure, a big character in all of this. So, and we're almost to the end of the book of Genesis. So a lot of what we're about to read has to do with Joseph from here on out. And so the Lord, or Jehovah was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that Jehovah was with him, and that Jehovah made all that he did to prosper in his hand. So it isn't just that Joseph is seen as being. Joseph isn't the central focus here. It says that Potiphar sees that Jehovah God is who blesses Joseph, and that everything Joseph does turns to gold because of Jehovah God. In other words, Potiphar acknowledges that this is because of Joseph's God. And so it's interesting there. This indicates that Joseph probably talked about Jehovah a lot. Hey, Gary, welcome aboard. That he was an example, and that we see that the Egyptians see that Jehovah is a real deity able to bless his. Another time we have a faithful follower really kind of spreading the word about Jehovah, just the way that Jacob did, the way that Abraham did, and so forth. So you have Potiphar sees this, and so he leaves all that he has in Joseph's hands, and he knew not aught he had save the bread which he did eat, and Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. So Potiphar doesn't even, he trusts Joseph so much that he doesn't even think to keep an account of all of his possessions anymore. He just lets Joseph handle it, and we're going to see this from time again. Right, yeah. So 38, 39, all of this is kind of, we're starting to get to the end here of the Genesis, the beginning of the Israelite. A lot of people look at Genesis as the beginning of the universe, and that's true. That's a small part of it, but really the Genesis is the genesis or the beginning of Israel. That's the true genesis here of the book title, or the reason that this is truly the genesis or the beginning, is because this is the beginning of Israel. And so we've vast quantities of time since Genesis 1, but we've been slowly kind of narrowing it down, and we got down to Abraham, and then Isaac, and then Jacob, and now the rest of the book is going to be really just the last generation of these 12 brothers. And so all of this is in one generation of men that we're going to be talking about from here on forward. So so anyway, Potiphar doesn't really take into account anything. The only thing he's really paying attention to is that he has food to eat always, and that everything is really taken care of in his household. That's how much he trusts Joseph. And Joseph is a good guy. He's a good person, and he is well favored because he just, everything he does, and God blesses him. And there's definitely this kind of what Satan says about Job, that you kind of put a hedge around him, that God does for Joseph. But a lot of this is also because Joseph is obedient to God. The way he acts is in accordance with God's will, and because he does that, there is blessings that flow. And it's kind of a lesson to us that if we're doing things God's way, providentially, because we're doing things God's way, then there are going to be certain blessings that come to us. There's gonna be people that are gonna see us as honest. I know that was something that I struggled with in my youth. It was a bad habit. Not that I want to brag at this point, but I am pretty smart, and I use that as almost a kind of a game to see what I could get away with, what kind of stories I could get out of, because I thought it was easier. And so I struggled with that, and I eventually developed a reputation for not telling the truth. And it was later on a hard lesson to deal with, that when you're honest, you develop that respect, and you develop that reputation, and that blessings will come if people know you to be an honest person. And so Joseph here is showing that, and we're seeing here that people they trusted him to the absolute nth degree, because everything he did was right and good, and he was just favored by God. The beginning of God's mission to save man. Yeah, that's another good way to look at it too, definitely. So it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, "Lie with me." So apparently you got kind of this bored housewife. Joseph is younger, and he's kind of a slave, so he's not supposed to have much say in this anyway. And so she sees him and likes him, and she's like, "Lie with me." But he refused. He said unto his master's wife, "Behold, my master doesn't know what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. In other words, Potiphar doesn't know anything that's going on here. He trusts me enough to handle everything in his house. And so there's none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Hey, Jessica, welcome aboard. We're in Genesis 39, verse 9. And so Potiphar is given everything. Joseph might as well not be a slave. He is a slave in the sense of kind of on paper, but as far as Potiphar's concerned, Joseph is his right-hand man, his second in command. And so Joseph is like, look, Potiphar's giving me everything but you because you're his wife. Why would I betray him and do this wicked thing and sin against God? Because that would ultimately, and Joseph has the right frame of mind. Yeah, it's a sin against Potiphar. It's the sin against the wife. It's the sin against himself. But ultimately, and most importantly, it's a sin against God. And Joseph is knowledgeable enough and faithful enough to recognize that. So whenever we do sin, there's a lot of parties that we are sinning against. We sin against the person that we commit the sin against. If another person is involved, we sin against ourselves. But most importantly, sin is against God. And Joseph recognizes that. And so it came to pass as she spoke to Joseph every day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her to be with her. So this is something that's ongoing. She keeps pressuring him, and he keeps saying no. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men with him. So they're in the house by themselves. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got himself out. So, the way he does this, he's doing his business. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's got to do his job. But he goes in and she catches him when there's nobody else in the house. And he does not give in to the temptation. And she grabs a hold of him, and he slips out of his robe and just is gone. I know as a teacher, there are awkward situations that I have to be mindful of on a regular basis. I never find myself in a room alone with a student. My door is always open when students are coming in, like during my off period or after school or before school for help. The door is never locked. And I flat refuse to be alone, especially with like a female student, where questions can arise. If I never find myself in that situation, nobody can ever accuse me of anything. And I had to learn that the hard way, because when I was growing up in high school, we had several teachers at my school that got involved with students, and it's a hard truth that there are just people out there, both teachers and students, who are going to try to get you into trouble. And so Joseph does exactly the right thing. While he's trying to do his job, she tries to kind of trap him into it, and he just runs. Hey, Trent, welcome aboard. And so, he flees. So she calls the men of the house and speaks to them, saying, see, Potiphar has brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got out. So she tells a lie here and says that the Hebrew, this she's totally being racist about it. This Hebrew's come in, and when there wasn't anybody else in here, he tried to come in and lie with me and seduce me. And when I cried out, he left. He just fled and left his coat here. And see, I have his coat as evidence. And so she tells, and this is a he said, she said kind of situation. There was no witnesses to say, and Joseph is a slave. So his word's not going to carry the weight that the wife of Potiphar is going to carry. And so she just flat out lies. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the case, is that, you can do everything right, and people are still going to, for whatever reason, try to get you in trouble. I remember not too long ago, there was just a progressive zealot that heard that some of the things that I was talking Bible-wise about homosexuality, And I posted up. I don't hold back on what I believe. I believe what I believe, and if I get persecuted for it, then God says that's going to happen, and so it happens. But I had posted up some things. They were not hateful. They were just, this is what the scriptures say. And she posted up some comments trying to get me in trouble at my last school, trying to get me fired. And so that sometimes happens, and it just comes with the territory. So Mike Pence's dinner policy is awesome. He was ridiculed for it. Now he looks wise in light of all this Me Too stuff. Yeah, Mike Pence is very wise for his choices. And my dog is barking at a squirrel. Karis, will you go shush Odin, please? Can you go down and shush him? Kate and Gwen are trying to sleep. Thank you. So anyway, Joseph doesn't have a choice. He's going to get persecuted because he just doesn't have a choice. He's a slave, and so it's just going to go against him. But God's still going to use this to His glory and to Joseph's benefit as well. And so she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. So she holds on to the garment until Potiphar comes home, and she told him all of these things, saying, "The Hebrew servant which you have brought unto us came unto me to mock me. And it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled out." So she tells the same story to Potiphar. Nobody's there. No, there's no witnesses to say otherwise. And Joseph is a slave. He can't defend himself. And so it came to pass when Potiphar heard the words of his wife, which she spoke unto him, saying, "After this man did thy servant to me," his wrath was kindled. So Potiphar gets mad. And Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. So this is kind of like the high, the high end prison, where the people who have done things against Pharaoh himself are put here. So these are probably political people. They're probably not like vile criminals necessarily. They're not going to be murderers or thieves or the people down on the streets doing bad things. But you're going to have like political opponents or people who have done things directly to Pharaoh. Almost said Caesar, but Pharaoh. And so Potiphar puts Joseph into this high-ranking prison. And so Jehovah is with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Again, I think this is providential. Joseph is a good guy. He's an honest person, and the keeper is going to see that. And so this is what I see when I see that Jehovah is with somebody. A lot of that is, this is a person who is abiding by God's will. And because he's doing that, Karis, can you turn down a little bit, please? And because he's doing that, then he gains favor with whoever is in authority over him or whoever he's in a relationship with here. So the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. So the keeper is like, "All right, Joseph, I'm putting you in charge." And it says here, in verse 23, the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand. So the keeper is kind of like Potiphar, treats Joseph the same way. He gives Joseph all of the authority inside over all the prisoners. He can't let him out. He's a prisoner. But he gives him all of this authority inside of the prison. And Joseph is blessed, and he does so well that the jailer just doesn't even pay attention. He just lets Joseph do it, and he's kind of living the high life because he's able to trust Joseph so much. So he didn't look to anything that was done under his hand, because Jehovah was with Joseph, and that which he did, Jehovah made to prosper. So we're starting to see the last little wheels turning here of getting the proto-Israelites into Egypt. And we're going to see this story unfold with the brothers and all of these things that we were familiar with growing up in our Bible classes. So, all right, that's our 2 chapters. We're done, just a little bit over 30 minutes, which is great for 2 chapters. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Feel free to share. Also, thank you for tuning in, and probably tomorrow night I'll do at least chapter 40, if not 40 and 41. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.